Welcome back, America. On this Friday, that music means Sonny Bunch is in the house, film critic for the Bulwark. He has got two great pods. Across the Movie Aisle is one of them, and then the Bulwark Goes to the Movies is another. You can follow Sonny at Sonny Bunch on Twitter. Follow me at Twitter as well, at Hugh Hewitt. Sonny, I went and saw Air last night, and Fetching Mr. Hewitt, and I love the movie, but of course it's set in 1984, which is BC for us, before children. So we remember everything about 1984 and then don't remember anything for 15 years thereafter. So it was really a fine movie for us.
Yeah, no, it is very much a nostalgia fest. It's funny, I saw it this week as well. I was catching up on some things I missed when I'd been out. And it's entertaining. I like Ben Affleck and I like Matt Damon. Ben Affleck's a solid director. And this story about the creation of the Air Jordan is pretty entertaining, everything considered. It's funny, you mentioned the year it's set, 1984. It's also got a very heavy rotation of late 70s, early 80s needle drops. Lots of songs from that era, which is always pleasant, always entertaining. But yeah, I like that movie quite a bit. It's funny. And,
let me tell you about Ben Affleck. I interviewed Phil Knight in 2016 when his book Shoe Dog came out. We spent an hour and a half talking to each other. He is a fascinating guy, and he is out there. Ben Affleck is very much in character of Phil Knight, sort of the guru up there with Steve Prefontaine, the whole Oregon scene. It's an unusual place.
Well, I find Phil Knight to be an interesting figure. I mean, it's very funny. There was an image going around, I don't know, 6 months ago, whenever it was that LeBron James broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record in the NBA. And it was a picture of people watching the game, people actually at the game, right? And the image showed everybody on their phone. Everybody was on their phone. They had their phone out. They were recording video of this historic moment of LeBron winning or taking over the scoring title, except for one person in the crowd who was just sitting there in the moment, absorbing it and enjoying it, and that was Phil Knight. Phil Knight was the one guy who was
really that's interesting,
watching and taking it all in. Which is, I mean, again, it's interesting. I think this movie does get to that kind of Zen Buddhist idea of living in the moment with him. I mean, look, I like this movie a lot, and it is very similar to Tetris. In the sense that it is this movie about corporations and brands and how you create a sustainable business that is equitable for everybody involved, which of course is very important to Affleck and Damon. So there is a little interesting backstory to this movie. Affleck and Damon, their new production company, Artists Equity, is who made this, and their whole shtick is, we're going to reward all of the people involved in the project. We're going to make sure all of our, people get back end participation and all that, except not really, because this movie was bought by Amazon. It's an Amazon Studios movie. They spent a ton of money on it. I mean, this is, how much do you think this movie cost you?
$40 million?
This is a $90 million movie.
Wow. How can that be?
$90 million plus, print and advertising and all that. What they did was they bought out all the back end, I'm pretty sure. I do not think this is a movie that people are going to get a lot of residuals on, but they bought it all. They got Amazon to pay for all of it ahead of time so they could distribute it to their people, which is, of course, a theme of the movie. There's a
yes,
big
equity. Get your equity.
There's a whole big sequence at the end where Michael Jordan's mother says, we want a piece of every shoe sold. We want to get equity out of this thing. And Matt Damon's character, he plays Sonny Vaccaro, who is the basketball scout for Nike. He's like, well, that's not the way the business works. We don't give players money per shoe because it would upend the whole industry, and you can't have people like the funny thing about that part of the story is that it's totally fake. Nike offered Michael Jordan as part of the package to get him to Nike basketball a piece of every shoe sold. That was like part of the pitch to get him there. But it's more dramatic this way. It's more.
Boy, did they hammer Adidas, though. I thought that
Yeah.
was funny. Now, the one thing that's interesting about path breaking, yesterday Lamar Jackson signed a 5-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens, $260 million, $185 guaranteed, huge deal. You know, Deshaun Watson is still the all-time deal because it's all guaranteed. But when athletes get a big deal, that just reflects growing market. The NBA was in the dumps, man, before Michael Jordan. There was some real shade thrown on the NBA in 1983 in this movie.
Totally. Well, I mean, you know, the NBA was very much the, you know, third-run franchise, fourth-run franchise of the sports world back in the early 1980s. Before, I mean, really, it was Bird and Magic that kind of turned things around. But then Michael Jordan. I mean, I do wonder a little bit about some of the historical quality of this movie, in the sense that, like, there's a scene at the end where Vaccaro comes out and he's like, "We got Michael Jordan." Everybody's cheering. Yeah. I'm just curious if that's what it was actually like, because we know what Michael Jordan is now.
He went third in the draft. He went third in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, he was after Hakeem, and he was after, you know, Sam Bowie. So I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Poor Mel Turpin. Poor Mel Turpin getting thrown shade on. And Mel Turpin, he's watching this movie. He doesn't know he's going to be in it. They better throw some money at him. By the way, it's done $70 million worldwide already, and I think it'll grow on people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid movie. Look, again, this is an interesting movie from a business perspective, because, you know, Amazon paid a lot of money for this movie. Again, they're probably all in $130 million, something like that. And the theatrical release is an important part of this thing, not necessarily for making money. I feel like if they make $80 to $100 million worldwide, they will basically break even on the advertising costs for this movie. That's about it. But the reason that they're putting it in theaters, the reason that they're really getting it out there and getting folks to see it, is because that makes it a bigger draw on Prime Video. I mean, they bought this movie for Prime. This is an Amazon original. Normally, this sort of thing would have been on Prime Video by now already. It would have been, you know, in theaters.
Sonny, my theory on that is, you and I are talking about it right now because some boomers went and saw it last night and enjoyed the 1984 Cars music, even the bad music they played with the video that they were showing Michael Jordan and family. It's all very 1984. So they're going to attract some boomers as well as every basketball fan in the country.
Well, and the reason you put it in theaters is because that makes it an actual event. That makes people interested in seeing it once it hits streaming. Every single piece of data that we have from Hollywood over the last 3 years shows this. A movie that is in theaters and then goes to streaming performs better on streaming.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Totally.
What's the step up?
What's that?
What is the step up? Is it like 100% increase in viewing? Or, I mean, how do they measure that?
Well, it depends on the movie, of course. But I mean, we're talking double digits, triple digits in some cases, differences between movies that are in theaters and movies that are not in theaters. I mean, this is a long running thing. Even in the before times, even before the pandemic, you know, a movie that gets even a nominal release in theaters that was always kind of destined for straight to video, straight to direct TV, right? The reason that these studios would give these movies a nominal run in theaters is because when you put it on direct TV or wherever, there's a tab there that says currently in theaters. You go to that tab, and that tab has a higher click rate. It has a higher buy rate. You could charge higher prices there. So people understand theaters as a signifier of quality. If you believe in a movie enough to put it in a theater and go through the whole process of getting it in a theater, it's like a filter for folks. They know that this is a quality movie, a quality motion picture.
That's very interesting.
But on top of that, I mean, just on top of that, the advertising campaign alone is what gets it in people's minds. I mean, the movies that go straight to Netflix don't get advertising campaigns. What they do is they show up on the homepage of Netflix, and people watch it and then forget about it 3 days later, right? I mean, that's how Netflix works, and it works for Netflix because Netflix has $18 billion of revenue every year. They can do something like that. They have the biggest app. They have the single biggest app. They can put something on their homepage and people will watch it regardless of how good it is. But no other streaming service is like that. So every other streaming service needs to. I think we'll see more of streaming services doing what Amazon is doing here with Air. They are going to put more movies in theaters. They're going to get, at the very least, decent 2-month long runs, and then they will be on the service, and they will be bigger hits on the service as a result of it.
Sonny, quick, in case you've got something else, we got a minute and a half. Have you got anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Well, there's Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. We mentioned that briefly last week. So I have a review out this morning, but it's a really good movie. It's a shockingly earnest movie. It's the most earnest movie that Guy Ritchie has ever made. There's none of his detached irony here. This is a very serious and earnest movie about a staff sergeant whose interpreter rescues him in Afghanistan, drags him 100 kilometers back to Bagram Air Force Base, and when the staff sergeant gets home, he has to work through the bureaucracy and everything else is getting him out, and can't do it. So he personally goes back to Afghanistan to bring him back. I mean, this is all in a trailer. I'm not spoiling anything yet. As starring Jake Gyllenhaal as the staff sergeant and Dar Salim as the interpreter. It's great. It's great. It's incredibly frustrating. And there's a little bit of it that is almost dishonest in the Hollywood way that some of these things can be dishonest, in the sense that, look, here's the thing about the story of the Afghan interpreters. It's a horrible shame and stain on the American honor that we have not done more to get these guys out who face death and retribution and horrible treatment at the hands of the Taliban after we fled the country and it fell immediately back to the Taliban. This movie is about a guy who got out. I mean, it's fiction. It's not real. It's about a guy who got out.
Some people did get out.
It's like Rambo 2 in the sense that, it's like this time we get to win. That's what this movie is.
Or Wings of Ingalls. But we're living it again in the Sudan right now with Americans going to get people that have been left behind. Sonny Bunch across the movie aisle, and the Bulwark Goes to the Movie podcast on Twitter at Sonny Bunch. Thank you, Sonny. Coming back with Ben Domenech, America. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Welcome back, America. Ben Domenech is a green room friend of mine, longtime pundit. He's an analyst for The Spectator, a writer there. He's also the author of the Substack available, The Transom, and one of the founders of The Federalist. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to be with you.
Thank you for joining me. This is early. I need to find Beltway people to do weeks in reviews. Sarah Westwood is willing, but you're willing to be up here and doing this. By the way, if your toddlers wander in, that's just fine. If you've got dogs, we don't care. I love seeing your face.
The toddler is asleep down at the end of the hallway. The 3-month-old I just heard stir a little bit, but I think she can make it through this segment at least.
All right, let's start with, I want to do each week a review in American politics, but I got to start with the president's awful press conference and the LA Times giving him a question. Karine Jean-Pierre out there yesterday saying, oh, nothing to see here, move on. But Dana Perino, Ari Fleischer saying, that never happened. What do you think of that episode?
Well, first off, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment for the press corps. It's an embarrassment for this White House. And it's an embarrassment for Joe Biden, because I think that the fact that he has to have this kind of hand-holding is ridiculous. And we've all heard rumors. Any of us who's been around in the Beltway and talked to people who are covering the White House on a daily basis has heard the rumors around this president and the way that he's had to have this type of hand-holding approach, through a numerous different interactions with the press. And, frankly, at a moment, Hugh, in which we have a lot of risk going on around the world, have a lot of threats that are very present and in the minds of a lot of Americans, and have, the potential for great power conflict in the near future with China, the last thing in the world that you want is to have a president, a commander-in-chief, who doesn't even know what's going on and can't be prepared for a question that's thrown at him. The idea that we would go from a president who took as many crazy things thrown at him, crazy questions thrown at him as Donald Trump, to someone who doesn't even have the capability to be prepared to answer a very low level, a very low octane question about his own administration's policies is something that I think is deeply concerning. And the fact that the press corps will go along with it until incidents like this happen is really an indictment of their own behavior in terms of treating him with kid gloves from the get-go when it came to his return to running for office again in 2020.
Ben Domenech, by the way, you can follow Ben on Twitter at @Domenech. Ben, in terms of, Chris Sununu said on the show this week, he doesn't expect Biden to be on the ballot. He expects Gavin Newsom to go to New Hampshire regardless. Do you think Joe Biden will end up on the ballot?
I think he will be, and I think that all the people who hope on the Democratic side that he's going to be replaced are really engaged in wishful thinking. I don't think that they're going to be able to find any path to removing him, particularly given that he is someone who has overperformed in terms of the estimation of this last midterm. I think there was all this talk, this chatter that was leading up to that midterm, anticipating that if a red wave happened, then that would be an opportunity for them to replace Joe Biden. But the fact that it didn't, the fact that they did not have the kind of sweeping result that a lot of pundits, including myself, expected, led to them to this point of saying, well, I guess we got to go with Joe again. And I think that that's really their best option at this point, even as unpopular as he is, even that the vast majority of Americans, and certainly a significant portion of his own party, do not want him to run again. I think that they do not have the ability to replace him on the ballot. And I think that he's shown no signs of letting go. He's going to white knuckle it to the end, Hugh.
I describe him as infirm because I don't want people to hear me saying the president has dementia or Alzheimer's. He doesn't. He's just infirm. He's just 80 years old. How do you describe the president right now?
Incredibly frail, both, I think, physically and mentally. We don't want to have the kind of situation where, someone, we've seen him tripping going up the stairs to Air Force One a couple of times. You don't want the kind of situation where if he trips the wrong way, he's going to be basically out of commission for a week. And that's the kind of thing that I think we have to openly consider as being a very real possibility. It doesn't give me any happiness to say that. It's just the effects of age. And people get old. And it's one of these things where, I think, unfortunately for America at this moment, we have so many people who are in such a state of advanced age in leadership positions in our politics that it really runs the risk of having a scenario where there's going to be a lot of change, I think, very quickly over the coming years in terms of the people who've been around for a long time departing the scene.
Ben, last question. I am in Republican Switzerland. I cover everybody. Donald Trump in New Hampshire last night, Ron DeSantis in Jerusalem. You got 45 seconds. Is it a two-person race already, or is it so fluid we can't really say that?
It's a two-person race. I think that the question is how long it remains a two-person race. And I think that Ron DeSantis really needs to come out guns a-blazing next month when we all expect him to announce, because he has a lot of ground to make up. But he does seem to be the only candidate who has a legitimate path to getting the nomination and to seizing it away from Donald Trump, just given the way that I think everybody else is stuck in single digits and really doesn't seem to have a path out of it.
Ben Domenech can be read every day at The Transom on Substack, and you can follow him on Twitter at @BDomenech. Thank you, Ben. Go find that baby. Always good. And thank you for getting up early. I love the American flag. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm coming back. Hour number 2 of today's Hugh Hewitt Show rolls along with Representatives Juan, Ciscomani, and Congressman Dave Joyce. Just back from the border. Join me to talk about whether or not that issue is going to be an issue in 2024. I think so. Stay tuned.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to salemnewschannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.
This hour of Hugh Hewitt starts right now on Salem News Channel.
Good morning, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Congressman Juan Ciscomani of Arizona and David Joyce of Ohio, Warren, Ohio, in fact, that's his district, joined me to talk about what's going on at the border and their trip to the Mexican border. Stay tuned to this hour of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
You won't want to miss a minute. This hour of Hugh Hewitt is on Salem News Channel.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt live on a Friday inside the Beltway. I was just tweeting out, I've got a new column coming out in the Washington Post shortly, which I wrote after reading the transcript of a settlement conference that was held in the courtroom of Judge David Carter between Los Angeles County, the city of Los Angeles, plaintiffs whose ruined businesses and property values because of the avalanche of homeless. There are 115,000 homeless people in California, and that's an undercount. They've all been living in misery because of the record-setting rain. And there's a court case underway. 115,000, 70,000 of them at least in L.A. County and city. And the L.A. city and the L.A. County have been sued by property owners and by people who just want to walk safely in Skid Row and other places. And David Carter's trying to get a settlement done. And Gavin Newsom is nowhere to be found. And I started writing this after Chris Sununu said on the show he expects Gavin to go and run in New Hampshire. Gavin Newsom is a handsome, articulate, funny, very successful politician, but the domestic issues set in 2024 are against him. The border, the collapse of public education in many places, soaring crime. Now, he can lay those first three off on other people. The borders, the feds, public education, and soaring crime are up to locals. But homelessness, the epidemic, it's off the charts in California. And I saw it again in my 4 months out there. He is passing by, Gavin Newsom is passing by the opportunity to get in and lead on fixing this nightmare. And it is a nightmare. For the people on the street, for the people around the people on the street, they could pass a law. He could get anything through. He's got a super legislature. He can reform the schools as well, like they did in South Carolina yesterday and probably in North Carolina this week. Universal school choice. But he won't do that with the CTA, the California Teachers Association. But at least get in the game, Governor. Get in the fight. I'll tell you, it's something else. Hey, Generalissimo, I got a nice note yesterday about you.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of unnerved me. It's from the doctor who runs myphdweightloss.com.
Oh, yes.
And she said, boy, you guys do a great job. We're getting a lot of people coming to myphdweightloss.com. To which I responded, well, that's all my good work. And
of course it is.
It is. I actually said to her, that's just because Dwayne.
You talking about Ashley, Dr. Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay.
She sent me a text. Said, boy, you guys are doing
Killing
great work.
Right? Yeah.
Well, getting people to try. All they have to do is myphdweightloss.com or call 864
644
1900.
That's 864
644
1900.
But I told her the reason is it's great when you've got someone in the studio who's actually lost 50 pounds
and kept it off.
And kept it off and can come on and tell us every day. And I said to her, I'm worried there are new drugs, right? The fen of 2023 is out, and she said there are also new injections, and they do not do people good.
No.
The only way to lose weight long term is to change your diet and exercise more. That's it.
Learn how food affects you and adapt.
And that's myphdweightloss.com.
Yes.
All right, that's people should go. And I just wanted to pass along that she likes you. I'm not sure anybody else does because you won't help me with my subtexting.
The people. What do you mean? I did exactly what you asked me to. I've got the subtext right here. You said to pick one at random. I picked one at random.
I've already written back to 4 of them. See, subtexting is a new feature of the universe. If you're a subscriber to the universe, you get every show.
I've responded to a few too, but you didn't.
Let me finish the pitch, all right? You stepped on my pitch. The universe is open to anyone who subscribes. You get every minute of every show. You also get the Grand Old Pod 5 days a week, which is original and exclusive content there. And now we've set up subtexting because I shamelessly stole from Orange and Brown Talk and Buckeye Talk. By the way, in the draft last night, Ohio State had number 2 overall, C.J. Stroud, number 6 overall, Paris, and then number 20, Jackson Smith and Jigba went to the Seahawks. There's no one from Michigan on that list. I just want to point out that Ohio State had 3 first-rounders. You know where to go, recruits. It's all about the NFL. You go to Ohio State. Anyway, I was telling people, now we have subtext. I can't respond to everyone who sends us an email at hughhewitt.com. Dwayne looks at it, and he sent me the ones that make sense. A lot of junk, a lot of spam. But subtext you got to subscribe to, and they are my rolling focus group. So if you want to be part of the rolling focus group for 2024, join the universe. All right, what do you think of Ben Domenech as a regular Friday guest? He knows his stuff.
Oh, I adore Ben Domenech. I think he's great. He is very. He's on the panel with Brett all the time. I think.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I was talking with him in the green room, and I said, if you'll get up early, I've got Sarah Weston do my end of the week Friday hit. He said, sure, I'll do that, but I'm going to have a T-shirt on. And I said, I don't care if you got a T-shirt on. I want to see you on the Salem News Channel.
I don't care
if a flag behind him. Yeah. What more do you want?
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. All right. Let me go back to the audio. Ron DeSantis in Jerusalem announcing a trade deal between Israel and Florida. Cut number 27.
First one is we are going to be I'm announcing a joint declaration between Florida, the Israel Innovation Authority, and the Israel American Chamber of Commerce. This declaration will promote greater cooperation, strategic partnerships, and trade and investment between Israel and Florida by exploring avenues for economic and business collaboration with a special emphasis on the healthcare industry. And our trip in 2019 has already paid dividends with Israeli companies that are involved in different parts of Florida. We think there's a lot more meat on the bone, and this is really going to help us facilitate that.
Biden announced.
It's very interesting to me that the Florida governor has been in Japan and Israel this week. I don't know if he went to Taiwan or South Korea, but I know he went to Japan and Israel. Next stop, Ireland and Italy. The three I's are Israel, Ireland, and Italy when you're about to run for president. But there are also good reasons for a governor to go. Okay, that's Ron DeSantis. I want to go back and play the Ron DeSantis, my favorite clip. He just clobbers a Dumby reporter who's trying to get a question about Guantanamo Bay. Ron DeSantis served his country as a JAG. He went with the SEALs to Iraq. He served at Gitmo. He went wherever the Navy sent him. He did his job. Someone's peddling a story about him. I don't care. I'm not going for the narrative. The narrative, he's a patriot who put himself in harm's way for America. So Ron DeSantis gets a question at the Jerusalem presser. I want this frame, an audio frame, cut number 5.
No, none of all that's BS. No, totally BS. Yep.
Say you were president.
Yep. Who said that?
Detainees.
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative.
This goes to, I love that. That is what the media has become. The American people hate legacy media. They hate it. They love me. They love Brett Baer. They love people who will tell them what happened, the actual facts. For example, there's a narrative building at the Hill today that there's a clamor for ethics reform at the Supreme Court. No, there's not. There's the same 20 lefties who hate Clarence Thomas and hated him since 1992. And they've got a few new people who hate Neil Gorsuch to make up stories of implied wrongdoing. Nobody did anything wrong. The justices have a voluntary disclosure system, and Clarence Thomas went back and amended it, his filing, when someone told him he had to file trips taken with Harlan Crow, and Neil Gorsuch left off one name on a real estate transaction at market value at arm's length with a person he didn't know. These are not scandals. These are narratives. These are not news. They are narratives. And Ron DeSantis knows the narrative business. Gosh, I love that. Put that on the permanent list. Meanwhile, I want to go back to what Donald Trump said in New Hampshire last night about nicknames. Cut number 4.
On Tuesday, Joe Biden officially announced that he will seek 4 more disastrous years in the White House. As you know, I've done very well against crooked Hillary Clinton, but today, I'm going to do this, and I think this could be maybe the most important part of what I'm going to say, because this is going to be a major announcement. Are you ready? Is everybody ready? I will be retiring the name Crooked from Hillary Clinton and her moniker, and I'm going to give her a new name. I don't know, like maybe Lovely Hillary or Beautiful Hillary, but I'm going to retire the name Crooked so that we can use the name for Joe Biden, because he'll be known from now on as Crooked Joe Biden.
I think that's a mistake. I've been calling Joe Biden Slow Joe Biden for 20 years. 23 years. He's been
You
slow
would think
Joe
that Hillary would
Biden.
be
And
very
he's really
happy
slow
today.
now. So I would have suggested
I think
slow
she'll be-
Joe
she's
Biden,
out
but the
there
president's going
someplace
with crooked
celebrating.
Joe Biden because sleepy Joe Biden
Because
didn't work,
there's
didn't
never
get
been
traction.
anyone
But
in the
crooked Joe
history of
Biden,
American
maybe.
politics so
1-800
crooked or
520-1234 if you want to get a call
And
in.
the press
Tarzana Joe is
absolutely
next. A
refuses
couple of
to
congressmen,
report
Juan
all that
Ciscomani
takes
and
back
David
there.
Joyce, have been to the border. More of that. And Sarah Westwood,
Because,
Dr.
frankly,
Kathleen
they're just
O'Toole,
as
the
crooked
assistant
as he
provost
is,
at
and they
Hillsdale, to
are.
talk about
They're just
Hillsdale
as
charter
crooked.
schools when we return to next hour. Stay with us. I am joined now by Tarzana Joe, official poet laureate of the Hugh Hewitt Show, and he's back to needle me again. Hello, Joe.
Hello, you. Have you ever written a column or even an email and then regretted it a little bit when you pressed send? Well,
Just about every day.
Last week I made some good-natured fun with artificial intelligence, and just when you're feeling cocky and you have the whole thing licked, you click your heels together and a hornet's nest gets kicked. My life, which was so beautiful, has suddenly turned ugly, and all because of what I wrote and read aloud so smugly. Yes, last week on the radio I made fun of AI. No, since that rhyme was broadcast, things have gone a bit awry. My sprinkler system ran all night and turned my lawn to fudge. I tried to start my Roomba, but the Roomba wouldn't budge. Alexa talked from dusk till dawn. I come to you exhausted, and though I didn't touch a thing, my Frigidaire defrosted. I ran for entertainment to the AM in my car, but every button that I pushed was set to NPR. My iPhone's now a paperweight, and that, friends, is a fact. And to add to the indignity, my microwave got hacked. Now, why are these things happening? What is the solution? Could it be coincidence, or is it retribution? Before the virus spreads to both my cars and trash compactors, I, for one, am welcoming our AI benefactors. That's AI's Revenge by Tarzana Joe.
Skynet, Joe. Skynet is upon us. You remember Skynet from War Games, right? Yeah, but look around. It's right. It's also the. Did you watch Wall-E, the movie, when Wall-E came out?
Regrettably, yes.
Yeah, we're all going there, where we never leave the chair and everything comes to us, but it's not a good place to go. I'm glad it was the next generation that has to deal with it. Joe, that's wonderful. Already posted at tarzanajoe.com, I assume.
Yes, sir.
And AI is not taking over your business, right? You continue to get requests for a human origin poem at tarzanajoe@reagan.com?
On a daily basis, on a daily basis.
Do you worry about ChatGPT cutting into your market share, which is, I think, 100%, given that I don't ever hear any other poet in America on a weekly basis?
No, I have, if it cuts into my market share, then romance will be on the way out, and I don't think romance will ever die. I have a request from someone that's a wonderful story. Maybe he'll allow me to share it with you, but it's
Please.
It's a semi-proposal poem, and after it all happens, we'll see. We'll see if I'm successful at being Miles Standish.
Semi-proposal?
Well, I can't go into details. I'm not at liberty to divulge. But.
Well, I'm glad. You can always trust Joe's guarantee of authenticity and of confidentiality. TarzanaJoe@Reagan.com for all your poetry needs. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
I love Joe, and I hope that the artificial intelligence bots do not attack me just because I talked to him. I want to read you the key line in a Reuters story. I've got Congressman David Joyce, who represents my old hometown of Warren, Ohio, northeastern Ohio guy. And I have Juan Ciscomani from Tucson, freshman, coming up. And I want to talk with them about a Reuters article. Over the course of 3 weeks, photographing and reporting from a remote border stretch in southeastern Texas, Reuters witnessed hundreds of Chinese migrants crossing into the United States and interviewed more than 24 in Mandarin. All of those interviews said they got the idea to take the land route to the United States on social media and drew on influencers, private groups, and comments to plan their trips. It's astonishing to me that the cartels have monetized this, and our country can't do anything about it. And these are people, apparently, just poor people. But among them will be some CCP spies. You just got to realize that. How would you want to enter the United States if you wanted a legend? You'd walk up. You'd join the river of Chinese immigrants, which joins the flood of all immigrants, which becomes a tidal wave at the border, and you'd hide among them. David Joyce and Juan Ciscomani, Congressman Extraordinary, are joining me after the break to talk about that. Let me tell you about Relief Factor. Doing it twice today. because, again, I've got that knee barking at me, and nobody sent me a helpful subtext as to what that is. And I'm looking for what in the world was that? Why all of a sudden, first time in 30, 40 years of running, that I have knee pain. Well, okay, I got icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. And I only take it once a day. I normally take it in the first hour. I'm doing it twice today because, I've got to deal with Genghis Kate and the other ones, the Scholar, the Flash, and Affable Teddy. But all of them, it will be fun, but they got a lot of steps, and it's only going up steps. I'm sure it's a tendon. I got to talk to someone about that, but it's a relieffactor.com made it better yesterday. Hopefully it will make it better over the weekend. I'll tell you about it on Monday. But I take my relieffactor.com every day, and I remind you at this hour before you go off on your long commute and the next hour before you go off on your long commute, do not leave home without your relieffactor.com. Just don't do it, right? Don't do it. Say no. And if you haven't got it yet, go get your starter pack for $19.95, 3-week start trial, and you can try it and see if you get the levels up. Helps your body's anti-inflammatory system. After the break, Congressman David Joyce, my hometown congressman. He represents the Valley, the Heartland, Warren, the Western Reserve. It's where it all began. It's where the frontier was. And then Juan Ciscomani, who's our freshman of the year from Tucson. They're both here. They've both been to the border. I'm going to read them that Reuters opening, and we're going to talk about what they saw and what can we do. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I got a lot of friends in Congress, and rarely do two of them show up at the same time. But David Joyce, congressman from northeastern Ohio, he represents my home digs, Warren and Ashtabula. He's a great, great, great congressman and a veteran. And Juan Ciscomani, my pal from Tucson, who is a freshman. This is a veteran legislator and a freshman, and together they join us. David Joyce, Juan Ciscomani, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Juan, let me start with you, even though you're the rookie. How'd you hook up with David Joyce, being a mentor and a friend?
Well, thanks, Hugh. Glad to be on again. And Dave has been exactly that, a solid mentor. He reached out early and offered his help. I know well enough that I need a lot of help in understanding this place quickly so that we can hit the ground running. Dave has always been available and responsive. I joined one of the caucuses that he leads, and he immediately gave me a role within that. So we linked up early, and it's been a great partnership so far. So I'm very, very honored and happy for that.
You know, David Joyce, when people ask me what my politics are, I used to say I'm a Rob Portman Republican. Now I tell them I'm a David Joyce Republican, because you got to have a certain ethic coming out of northeastern Ohio, which is open-handed and plain-faced and very, very much an open book. How did you decide you're going to give some help to the freshman Juan Ciscomani?
Well, luckily, thanks for having me first on, Hugh, and I'm honored by your words. When I was last year in October, I wasn't having really quite the race a lot of my friends were, so I had the opportunity to reach out, and I reached out to Juan and offered support and anything I could do, and I could tell you, since he's gotten here, even from the first time we chatted to the time he's gotten here, he's been a rock star. And I put him in charge of immigration as far as being our guy to lead us in the RG2 group. And I'm at a point now, as you can appreciate, where Mario Diaz-Balart had told me, he goes, whatever Juan wants, I'm in with. So he's really doing great.
Now, let me tell you guys what I just read before you came on. And I'm glad it's this morning because, of course, Juan Ciscomani is a border, very savvy guy from Arizona, and David Joyce is up at the other end of the country, and we haven't got a lot of Canadians coming across Lake Erie, though it does happen. Reuters just reported, over the course of 3 weeks, photographing and reporting from a remote border stretch in southeastern Texas, Reuters witnessed hundreds of Chinese migrants crossing in the United States and interviewed more than 24 in Mandarin. Juan, how bad is it, and is it getting worse?
It absolutely is, and it's going to get worse with the lifting of Title 42. That's the ugliest thing about all this. Whatever we're seeing now that has been naturally progressing and getting worse due to the lack of leadership from both Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas, they've made another ultimate tragic decision of lifting Title 42, and that will happen on in a couple of weeks, in less than 2 weeks. And it's not us saying this, is our own Border Patrol and CBP that they know that this is about to explode in so many ways. And it's not even only them. I'm being reached out by local NGOs and the counties in my district that are worried about who's going to foot the bill for all this and what's going to happen. So whatever side of the aisle these elected officials and community leaders are sitting on, and nonprofits, they know that a flood is coming, and that it's going to be it's going to both be dangerous for the people that are coming and being trafficked, and also for our own communities.
David Joyce, the slogan is every state is a border state, but candidly, growing up in Warren and you in the northeastern region, immigration was not a hot button issue in the upper Northwest, in the upper Midwest. It just wasn't, because there wasn't a problem. But now fentanyl is everywhere in my hometown. I'm sure it's throughout your district. Is that why you've got an eye on the border as well?
Absolutely. I mean, that is coming across and killing 80,000 plus Americans, and we're losing so many every single day, and that has only progressed. And the trouble is that before, when we were kids, maybe it was marijuana, which large bales. Then it went to cocaine, which is a little more compressed. But now with these pills, they can put enough inside a spare tire that they bring across the border to kill whole communities. And it's just, we have to declare war on it. We have to go after these cartels and declare them terrorist organizations, and start to hit them where it really hurts, right there in Mexico and at the border.
Now, you're both appropriators. I think you're on appropriations, aren't you, David?
Yes, sir.
And so are you, Juan, correct?
Yes.
So you guys get to write the appropriations bills with writers on them. I had to deal with that when I was running OPM back in the 80s, and we'd get these appropriation writers that tied our hands on various things. Are you two working to figure out how to get money to the authorities that need it, how to build the facilities that are wanted, and how to make sure that Team Biden doesn't ignore things? I'll start with you, Juan.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is a trip that, David, I'm sure we'll also talk about, was coming to the border. I've hosted 3 different delegations in my district. First one with Speaker McCarthy, second one a bipartisan and bicameral delegation with Senator Sinema over in Cochise County as well, and the third came with a very important group of appropriators. The Chairwoman Granger was there, Dave was there, Henry Cuellar, a Democrat, was there, and I of course joined the group as well. And we got to see firsthand, listen from our officers in the front lines and what they need. And I think, we were able to see the uniqueness of the border specifically in Arizona. Obviously, the whole border needs support, but the Arizona border is very, very unique because of the terrain, the vast land of it, and the needs on the ports. So my colleagues were able to see that, and I think we all walked out of those meetings a bit more informed on the need.
Congressman David Joyce, our border is Geneva-on-the-Lake, Billow Beach. I mean, I go over to Camp Notre Dame in Erie as well, or you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or First Energy, no longer First Energy, Cleveland State. That's our border. No one's coming across it. So what did you learn going down to the southern border?
Well, as the chair of the Homeland Security Appropriations Committee, it was nice to go with Kay, our leader, and Henry as my ranking member, but then also have a guy like Juan who's actually living it, and they're on the ground. And as members of the House Appropriations Committee, we view the situation of the border with an eye towards the budgetary needs. And, let's face it, from Arizona to Ohio, every city is feeling, across the country is feeling the consequences of this crisis. And when Title 42 public health emergency ends in just a few weeks, this situation will grow more dire. They're telling us they're already starting to see the uptick now of people getting ready to come because I feel bad for the hardworking men and women who are trying to protect the border when you've got an administration who will not do anything except wave a green light out there that you're welcome, you'll get in here. And the numbers just keep increasing, and we've got to do something about this. So what we're looking to do is, and what Kay and I and Juan were asking, and what's working? And then what's not working? And it starts about more fence, but just what you had pointed out, Hugh, I'm not going to give them more money to build a fence when they're not building fence with the money they've already got. So, we have to put those riders in the appropriations process to specifically tie the hands of those at Homeland that if they're going to do anything, they're going to build exactly what they say they're going to build. They're not going to reappropriate it.
Can we get a fence between Pennsylvania and Ohio to keep the Steelers fans out? Can we put that in there, too? It would do us all a lot. Anyway, I want to be serious for a second. Well, are you a Cardinal, David Joyce? Are you the ranking member on Homeland?
I'm the chair.
Oh, my goodness. So you and Ken Calvert get together. I got the 2 most powerful friends in Congress. Juan, you found a good one, the Cardinal. Would you explain, David, what a Cardinal is for the benefit of the Steelers fans who are listening?
Well, the 12 subcommittee chairmen are all named Cardinals because the appropriations chair, Kay Granger, is considered the Pope, I guess you will, as far as being in charge of how money is spent here in D.C. And so authorization committees can authorize the money, but unless appropriations puts the money to the task, that's where the rubber meets the road. And so people tend to come to our committee looking for dollars.
Juan, what do you want? What's the ask from a frontline congressman in a frontline city overwhelmed by the flood of people? And there's hundreds of Chinese speaking Mandarin getting hashtags in China. It's going on all over the world because the cartels have monetized this. What is your ask from the appropriators that you serve with?
Yeah, they absolutely monetize this, and they're the ones that are making big bucks with this, along with the cartels. It's a partnership on the business side, on the illegal business side of this, and the people that are suffering in the middle are both the migrants themselves and obviously our country. And it's tragic, and what they're asking for isn't difficult. Hugh, it's a couple of things on the. Well, first of all, they have laws in the books that they're not able to enforce due to the leadership. When Dave and I come back and we want to make sure that the Department of Homeland Security applies the resources like they should, This is nothing against the agents and themselves, men and women in the front lines doing the work. This is about the people in D.C. making the wrong decisions and giving the wrong guidance, starting with the president, with the secretary, and then their leadership teams. They're the ones that are playing games with this and are costing us the way they are. So the one thing is exactly that, adding guidance to the resources, because we have to provide these resources and add the guidance to it. And what they're asking for are, we need to add more technology. That is the number one thing that they need because the cartels are using technology and they can't be a step ahead of us on this. So that is a big piece of it. Obviously, more agents is important. Help with the hiring process and also finishing the whatever area of the wall that needs to be finished. That is another piece of it. So what they're asking for is not rocket science. It's just the tools that they need to do their job, and this administration is just not giving it to them.
David, Joyce, let's close with this. When I used to read the appropriation writers, I'd hit my head because it told me what I had to do as the general counsel and then deputy director and director of OPM. And it doesn't leave you can't do some things because you're barred from doing things, and you have to do other things because you're obliged, or you can zero out funding for the yo-hos at Homeland Security who are not doing anything. What is your priority in terms of writers?
To make sure that the money that they're asking for is being spent on the things that they've requested it for. That's been the biggest problem, and you're absolutely right. But remember, we just took over the majority, so this is our first time to write the bills. And so we're going to target that money and make sure that their hands are tied and spending it on the things like Juan had brought up, making sure the technology is working, and getting ready for us. I mean, let's face it, unless this administration stands up and says you're not welcome here, we're the 25th month in a row where we've had over 150,000 encounters at the border. We have to have a border that works, but we also have to have one that makes sure that it's people coming into this country are safe and that we're not bringing criminals in here.
And we've got to take care of the kids. I mean, the kids are ending up being trafficked and into child labor. I am astonished that people don't know what's going on. David, Joyce, Juan Ciscomani, two congressmen extraordinaire. Juan, you got to get up to Billow Beach and Lou's Steakhouse. Got to come to Warren's Hot Dog Shop and Sunrise Pizza. And Dave, I think you got to go down and try that border food, which is a little bit hot for my taste, but Juan can break it in for you. David, Joyce, Juan Ciscomani, thank you both. Have a great Friday. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to salemnewschannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. President Biden just flubbed his press conference, and the scandal. Karine Jean-Pierre tried to tell people yesterday that everything's just standard ops. Cut number 20.
The LA Times said that their reporter did not submit any questions in advance of yesterday's press conference. So to people who saw that pocket card, can you explain how that ended up there and why the president needed something like that?
So just to step back, and I'm actually glad you asked that question. Clearly, I would let the reporter for Los Angeles Times speak for herself. It is entirely normal for a president to be briefed on reporters who will be asking questions at a press conference and issues that we expect they might ask about. It is not surprising that yesterday we would anticipate questions that he did receive, right, on the visit with the South Korean president, as the South Korean president was standing to his right.
Stop right. Questions he did receive. Notice how she's reading an artful dissembling. She is dissembling there. How did he receive? What did he receive? She told them what she would be asking. And I mean, I do brief people. Hey, we're doing national security. We're doing domestic policy. We're doing something broad. I don't want to. I'm not in the ambush business. I'm just not in the ambush business. I don't want to prove you don't know what the state capital of Ohio is, even though if you don't know it's Columbus, and if you don't know that they had 3 first-round draft choices from the Buckeyes yesterday, I don't know what cave you're living in. But I don't want to trick people. I want to know what they think. But I do not say, I'm going to ask you about semiconductor production in America and whether or not that threatens semiconductor production in South Korea. And my name, and they know who I am because they can remember who I am. I don't send out, David Joyce and Juan Ciscomani, see Hugh Hewitt. They don't have to, recognize my voice or watch on the Salem News Channel. I hope you've downloaded the app. Or get my email from HughHewitt.com, or follow me on Twitter at Hugh Hewitt, or get my iPod, my iTunes pod every day at Highly Concentrated Hugh, or even belong to the universe. They don't have to do any of that. I expect them to be not infirm, facile, well-informed, and if I slip them, it's by accident, and I'm not out to embarrass anyone. I really am not. But the President of the United States ought to be able to handle any question when you've got a visiting head of state. And look at Ron DeSantis yesterday. Do you think he's going to get a question on Gitmo when he was there at 2006? He did, in Israel, in Jerusalem. Cut number 5.
During your time
No, none of all that's BS. No, totally BS. Yep.
Did you say you were president?
Yep.
Is that
Who said that?
detainees?
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative.
I want that framed. I want that on the permanent speed dial at the Hugh Hewitt Show, because I hear it all the. Did you get a narrative question from the press for Joe Biden? No. You've got planted questions. But you got to be able to handle the hardball at your head, like Ron DeSantis did yesterday. Donald Trump, by the way, took the opportunity last night at a New Hampshire rally to contrast the way he deals with the press and questions with the way President Biden did. Cut number 3.
And by the way, we will take a few questions if you want after we're finished. Is that okay? So I do that early so you can think. Otherwise, if I do it right at the end, that's the better way to do it. I'll finish and then I say, any questions? Okay, let's get out of here. Now you have a whole little time to think about it, but we'll take a few questions, okay? You think Biden takes questions? I don't think so. I don't think so. You saw yesterday he had the cue card. He said, call this one. This is what she's going to ask, and here's the answer. They never did that with me in the White House, I can tell you.
I never did that with me. Oh, it's the best interview in the world because he doesn't need any planted questions, and he's not infirm. One more cut of Donald Trump, cut number 29.
With your vote on November 5th, 2024, we're going to crush Joe Biden and the White House, that gorgeous, beautiful White House. We have to take it back. We're going to beat him at the ballot box, and we're going to settle our unfinished business. It's unfinished.
Okay, wait until some lefty comes up and says unfinished business is a threat. That's going to happen. No, it's not. Unfinished business is more border security, more defense spending, more deterrence of China, more good judges as opposed to terrible judges, whether it is former President Trump or Governor DeSantis or Ambassador Haley or Senator Scott or Vivek Ramaswamy. No matter who it is, they got a lot more to do. The unfinished business of the agenda that was working so well to grow the economy until the Chinese poisoned us with COVID. And then they rebuilt it a second time. Now you have to do it a third time. Interesting stuff ahead. Kathleen O'Toole is the assistant provost at Hillsdale. She runs the Barney Initiative on Hillsdale Classical Charter Schools. And I got a new colleague who's on the Orange County Classical Academy, and it's just killing it. And boy, you ought to start one in your state. And we're going to talk charter schools, public charter and private, with Associate Provost Kathleen O'Toole. Dr. O'Toole is next on the Hillsdale Dialogue here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.